Hello, this is Tom Childers. Right now I'm going to bring up a axes here between hyperlocalism and National Socialism. And what the idea is that it's a little bit of a diagonal shift from absolute power and sovereignty, where, but it's short of anarchy and orthodoxy. And so this like middle ground for both between yellow and green and red and purple is kind of interesting. In between, where the space between anarchy, which is the dissolution of all power, power structure, and sovereignty, which is the establishment of sovereign states based on the principle of sovereign individuals, is basically the idea of hyperlocalism, and that's the process. It's a principle based process of breaking society into smaller increments, so that for pride, like national pride, and like when a society breaks down into smaller and smaller groups and is not happy until they break into more and more smaller groups, and they march in the streets because they want separation and revolution, but they want it together, then that's the idea of self-rule all the way down the line, to the point where it's community-based decision-making power. And that's kind of has some parallels with civil society and traditional conservatives of the American bend, but it's like from another direction, because they would want to break away from those conservative policies and institutions even still, because most importantly, it's the hyperlocalism of going your own way that is embodied by this space between yellow and green. Now, it's opposite. Oh, I want to add one more thing. Much like it is similar to, shares some similarities with conservatism, it also shares some similarities with nihilism and the idea of knowledge as primacy, or as having prime driving force, in that there's not really a rationale for why they want to do what it is they want to do. They just do want to do what it is they do, and it's often for things as simple as their local language or dialect, or the right for the people that in their traditional heritage they honor and respect. They want to have them featured prominently on their like public buildings and their stamps and stuff like that. And so it's not principle based or like sacred wisdom based, even though it oftentimes is the cultural knowledge and their cultural markers. Now, the opposite, the corresponding trend across of hyperlocalism is National Socialism. Now, we have been giving National Socialism a bad name because we call it like far right. We say that it's evil. It's like the one evil that we're allowed to think is evil. And the alleged boogeyman of the 20th century, and for as far back as we can remember, is a National Socialist. But when we say that, we've been edited so that we can't actually say socialists. We call them Nazis because it's a special kind of Nazi. It's one that wears red flags and red bands, and they're like bad, like the Boy Scouts and stuff like that. But the National Socialist Party of Germany was against the 1%. They rounded them up, all the Jews and all the rest of the 1%, and they killed them. They're making them, do manual labor because they deserved it. It's like a little bit like the Occupy Wall Street with a good leader. They were vegans. They burned books that offended them. They were very outraged by a lot of things. Like, they were socialists. They were the best organized socialists. But they had like a twist. They liked who they were, and they wanted to be more of it. And so they were National Socialist Party. And so the whole concept is almost like a mirror image of the identitarian leftist weirdness that we have right now with the whole outrage culture thing and this like total inversion of values. But what the National Socialist parties and social movements had that was in common is like more than you could even list. But the things that they had in difference is that they do like something. They like their country, and they want their country to rise in power. And so that's a very enlightening difference between Nazis and people who hate Nazis, because it's very strange for a person to have all of all of the principles and the ways of operating that the Nazis did it's all in parallel with the modern left, except for one thing, and that's what they hate so much about Nazis. Is that Nazis like their country, and Nazis they ran a society that was based on what was good and order, like regarding their personal perspective. And so they lived in a way that was like, the ends justify the means, which made them very wicked, and they did very awful things. But that's not what's a complaint with the people that hate Nazis. What's a complaint with the complaint against the Nazis these days is not that they liked it. It's not that they were willing to sacrifice anything for their own objectives. It was that their own objectives involved a idea of what is good that involved themselves and things that are good. But they weren't that good because they hated the people that were successful in their own communities and businesses, and they stole it all from them. So they weren't that good. I mean, speaking wise, but as far as like giving their own specific ethno-cultural group an advantage over the expense of other people, they did do that. I think that it's safe to say that everybody suffered in the long run, but they gave themselves like a big leg up by, killing all the other people. Now, what's really strange is that that's not the offensive part about Nazis, National Socialist parties. It's the national part that we're having difficulties with. And I think that that's a very strange circumstance to find ourselves in. And that, part of that is right at the apex of where Jordan Peterson and my own studies have intersected. And I was not just impressed by the fact that he decided to, and also did, go through the first 5 stories of Genesis and like rehash all of them, but he also did this. He deconstructed the question of the 20th century, which is, why do we not think that Soviets and communists are bad, but we think that the Nazis are bad? And so he ended up taking a whole nother direction and did a whole lot of other different stuff that only a psychologist stepping into the realm of historian could do, and especially in our day and age. And he did a fantastic job. I think what he posed to himself was, what would it take for me not to be a Nazi in Germany during the time of Nazis? And it turned out to be a very complicated question that really took everything that you have to really transform your understanding of the world in ways that you can't know in advance. You have to actually jump off and not land until you find your footing. And so it was a really good way of trying to regain control over our cultural despondency, and then just it's not even confusion. What was the heart of the matter that he was able to uncover, that founded the basis of his massively popular, like worldwide phenomenon emergence, was that we don't actually misunderstand. We're actually doing it for certain reasons, and we need to become aware of those certain reasons, because they're the same reasons that led to the creation of such a foul temperament and a disastrous way of life. It's what we don't know is what we need to know in order to stop it from happening again, which is something that is basically, there was only a world war just a few years before the Second World War. I mean, there's a bit of inertia when it comes to things like this, and we're severely unprepared for that kind of circumstances. But let's see if I can't draw these together. So this is hyper-localism and National Socialism. It's without concern. Their similarities aren't concerned so much with the topics of what you know, or the way you live, the way your culture is, but it's more an issue of absolute power and centralization, and a declared ethic, and its opposite, which is decentralized power. It can revolt against declared ethics, and separation of groups into self-governing identities. And so there's basically, when you get to a group, when you become a National Socialist organization, the next thing what you do is you then take over everything you can within the territory that you have available, and then you march. And what you do is you go and you just march from the next localization, locale, to the next locale, and take them over, take all their stuff, kill all their owners, the owners of all the property, put in your own people to manage the labor that's there, tell them there's a new sheriff in town, and start collecting, labor and soldiers and anything you want. And so the National Socialist organization it's like it's the right thing to do is to not like it. I mean, I'm with you on that. But we should not like it for what's not good about it, which is almost exactly in parallel with communism. Because the only difference is at least you know what they're going to go for. They're going to go for their territory, people that own things, and then the next territory next door. With communism, you don't have any idea what's going to happen from one day to the next. They change organizational structure based on like a neighbor to neighbor, brother to brother like situation where it's all up in the air. There's no flag bearer. There's no credo. Anyone who claims to have some like storyline, if you've ever read anything about like Marxism, it dissolves. It all just turns into fog as you try to like understand it more clearly. There's actual like volumes of people who describe Marxism openly as contributing to their movement. They say that there is no understanding to have. It's whatever you want it to be. And we should handle this in a way that's responsible so that people don't like get scared away from the cause, because we're selling them ideology that means nothing at all. They can't grasp it. It's ungraspable. We're not even it's impossible to hold in your head without knowing that you are. What was it that Justin Murphy said? He said that a society or a movement is based upon everyone agreeing to a lie. Well, he's a communist. Catholic communist. There's two lies right there. Wonder if he's a liar.